Can you hear me? Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Hito. I'm a filmmaker. Initially, I wanted to show you a video, but actually I decided, inspired by some of the previous presentations, just to expand on the one question which motivated my project, and it is the question, is the museum a battlefield? Now you may say, of course not. Oh, how could it be a battlefield? A museum is this elitist ivory tower which is completely shut off from actual reality. No, it's completely secluded from any kind of real things going on in the world. And if art wants to have any impact on reality, it's got to leave this sanitized space, this cordon sanitaire, if you will, and go outside. On the other hand, historically, museums have always been battlefields. They have been torture chambers. They have been sites of execution. They also have been, coincidentally, the site of two of the most, or at least two of the most important revolutions in world history. For example, the October Revolution in 1917 took place. I mean, as you all know, this was the storming of the so-called Winter Palace by Bolsheviks. But few people are aware of the fact that the Winter Palace actually housed a huge art collection, the Hermitage. And you see this in Eisenstein's film October. When the Bolsheviks stormed the Winter Palace, there's a lot of artworks which are impassively watching on, no? As the troops storm off the stairs of the Winter Palace. There is a statue by Auguste Rodin, actually, which follows the proceedings. And another famous museum to have been a battlefield inside of a revolution is the Louvre, which, when it was stormed in 1792, 19 is a kind of optimistic projection, 1792, it became afterwards the site of the first public art museum. That is quite well known. But what is less well known is the fact that it was stormed 5 times more during the 19th century. It was actually stormed 6 times in order to remain a public space, a public art museum. It was stormed in 1792, in 1830, 1832, 1848, and 1871, and each time it was a massive battlefield, a major battlefield, where a battle for public space, for public art, actually, was fought. Now, the project, which I cannot show you today, it deals with the question, how do we relate this kind of issue? How do we relate it to a contemporary situation? How do we relate contemporary battlefields to what's going on in contemporary art nowadays? And this may not be so obvious. So I took a case study, which is a very small and not very important battlefield, in actually southeast Turkey, in the Kurdish region. And on this battlefield, a friend of mine is supposed to have been summarily executed 15 years ago, having been a member of the so-called PKK, or Kurdish Workers' Party. So this case has never been investigated, as haven't many hundreds of other similar cases. There has never been any investigation into this issue. So when I got there, I decided to literally follow the debris from the battle site, which is ammunition cases and rocket shells and, you know, all sorts of other little objects which were lying around the site, and follow them back to the place where they were produced, where they were made, to the places which actually helped to design, to make, to construct this battlefield. And doing so, I ended up, of course, in the Western metropolis, and I ended up in the lobbies of basically all major Western and American weapons manufacturers, but I also ended up, all these lobbies of these people had always been mysteriously designed by Frank Gehry, no? So I think, you know, if I was to indict anybody in The Hague for that war crime, this would be my prime suspect, actually, no? But, you know, more than that, there would also always be an Anish Kapoor sculpture standing around. Yeah, and also lots of other pieces of contemporary art are decorating this kind of places. So in fact, I think that in this kind of location, contemporary art serves precisely as this as this screen, you know, which enables this kind of traffic, the kind of construction and design of battlefields all over the world from these lobbies, from these sites of contemporary art, which enables this process to go on. Now, the most surprising thing was actually I followed one rocket shell, General Dynamics, followed it back to where I thought it was coming from, and imagine my surprise when I found my own artwork being installed there. No? So this artwork was actually showing the battlefield, which in my logic originated from that site. I was following the bullet back to the place where it came from, and I ended up in a sort of very weird feedback loop. No? It was as if the bullet was not flying straight from one point to another, but actually it was flying in a circle. No? It was flying in a loop and probably killing a lot of people on its way. Now, what do we do in this kind of situation? What do we do when we are stuck in this kind of loop, in this feedback loop? What do we do? Of course, we do one thing. We go back to the beginning. And the beginning of this story, the beginning of my talk, is the question of the museum as battlefield. And the museum, as I said, is one of the prime sites of revolution. In fact, it seems almost as if you cannot have a revolution if you don't storm a museum. So it seems if we are stuck in that loop, we may have to go back to this point in time and storm the museum again. Thank you.